All right, well, it looks like it is 4:30 and I want to respect you all's time. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Good afternoon. My name is Asha. And today, my colleague Shelly and I are going to be working with you all to introduce you to the MX SMARTboard that you all have in your classrooms. Really briefly about me, I'm currently a customer success manager and I used to be a SMART training specialist. Prior to working for SMART, I was an elementary school teacher. Moving on to Shelly, if you just want to share.
Hi all. Yep. So I recently joined SMART from the classroom. I was most recently a 5th grade teacher, and before that I was in middle school for 6 years. And that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelly. So like I said, Shelly and I will be working with you all today. She'll be in the chat if you do have any questions. You can drop those questions in the chat. You can also come off mute if you have some questions that you would like for me to answer. And it looks like we have Michelle, Kimberly, and Kimberlyn in the chat as well to provide you all with some support from your district. I am sharing my screen as well as me being on camera. The screen that I'm sharing is probably a little clearer and easier for you to see. So if you want to pin that screen, you can. That way you can focus on the content that I'm sharing instead of trying to see it through my camera here. Now that Shelly and I have introduced ourselves, we would love to hear a little bit about you all. So if you don't mind sharing in the chat your grade level or maybe what content area you teach, and what is one thing that you're hoping to walk away from this training having learned. So maybe what's one goal that you have for today? What's one tool you want to learn how to use? Feel free to go ahead and share that in the chat with us. I see using the board for interactive lessons. Cool.
Oh, we got some primary teachers here. We got a lot of awesome things for those little kiddos. Music.
What else is there?
9-12 music.
Overall use of the board, right? It's like you got installed over the summer. Now what do I do with it? Definitely gonna get you started with that today. Cool.
Kind of got the whole gamut of ages. So we'll definitely give a lot of different examples throughout to help everyone across the board.
Oh, third.
Asha was a 3rd grade teacher.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing with us. Feel free to continue to pop those in the chat. I am going to keep us moving because like I said, I want to respect your time, but definitely continue to share and Shelly's going to keep her eyes out. All right. So in today's session, we are going to be, like I shared, introducing you to that board that got installed in your classroom over the summer. So it's really about the basic navigation of the board. Also going to go over some tips for cleaning and some safety practices. And you are going to have the opportunity to do some exploration. So you'll get to check out some of these tools firsthand. And at the end, you're going to have the opportunity to reflect and share one tool or maybe feature that you plan to use with your students, because overall, this experience is supposed to show you how this MX board can enhance your instruction. Okay, so we're going to go through a learn and interact, and then also give you some time to reflect. All right, so let's get this show on the road. Starting off, we have information about safety and care. Okay, safety and care. These boards are pretty big. They're also pretty heavy. And there are some tips that we have for you all to implement in order to keep yourself safe as well as your students safe. And then when it comes to cleaning, we have a recommendation for that as well. What I have in my hand is a microfiber cloth. This is what you can use to clean your screen. It usually does a pretty decent job of getting the smudges off from maybe some fingerprints. But if you have any smudges that are a little stubborn, you can spritz your cloth with a little water. You never want to spray anything directly on your board. You will just spritz a little water on your cloth and then use that dampened cloth to clean your screen. Uh-oh, and I'm moving my screen. So this is a sneak peek. Now, in your whiteboard, you have quite a few areas of space that you can kind of navigate to. So if you do have students up on the board working and you needed some more space, you can either add a new whiteboard page or you could just scroll over to a blank area. But that is not what I was intending to show you right now. So going back to our safety and care features or tips here, in addition to the cloth and the water, we do ask that you please keep magnets away, don't tape anything onto your board, and you only want to use the gray and white pen that comes with the board. Okay, so don't write on it with an expo marker or maybe a highlighter. Stick with the pens that come with your board. All right, so your SMARTboard has some buttons. When you're facing the board, those buttons can be found in the bottom right corner. And those buttons allow you to do several different things. The first button from the left that you'll see has a little house underneath it. That's your home button. And whenever you press that button, regardless of the screen that you're on, it will always bring you back to your board's home screen. For example, if I press that button on my board right now, it takes me out of that file that I was using to present, and it takes me back to my home screen. Okay, so whenever you want to quickly get out of something, go back to that home screen. And I go back to my file there. Right next to the home button, you have an input button. That is what you would press if you needed to change what input you're on. Here on the home screen of the board, you're using IQ, which is basically the intelligence system that your board comes with. But if you ever wanted to maybe switch to a computer that you have connected, you can do that by clicking on that input button. And it'll take you to a screen that looks similar to this. Right now, I don't have anything externally connected, so you can't really see any previews here, but these are the different sources that you have available on your board. And press my home button again to go back and go back to my file. Next to the input button, you have an icon or a button that has like a little, kind of looks like a projector screen icon underneath it. That is your screen shade. And screen shade is really cool if you want to quickly cover or hide the content that you have on your screen. So maybe your students are walking in and you don't want them to see the unit or lesson that you have prepared. You can quickly press that button. And when you're ready to reveal what's behind it, you just press the button again, and that will turn the screen shade off. Right next to that one, you have a—
I'm sorry, quick question. That screen shade, and I'm sorry, I'm driving, that's why I didn't type in the chat. That screen shade that you're showing, is that just like the students are coming in, you're not ready? Or like, can you hide one thing and then be on a different page? So that's literally hiding the whole board.
It's literally hiding the whole screen. Okay, so
Okay.
whenever you press that, it's going to cover whatever you're doing on the screen. You wouldn't be able to access like another tab or window.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, so that was the screen shade, and then you have the freeze if you need to pause the screen. Right next to that, you have some volume controls. Okay, so pretty self-explanatory, volume down, volume up. And then the last button there is the power button. That is the button that you would press if you would like to send your SMARTboard to sleep. When you press that button, the screen will go black. I'm not going to press it because I don't want my screen to go black right now, but when you press that button, the screen goes black and it basically puts your panel in a sleep mode. When you come back and you press the button again, it will turn back on in whatever spot that you left. Okay, so those are your buttons. And any other questions, either Shelly or anybody else? Let's see if I can see.
So there, for the input button, they're asking what other devices could be added besides just your computer. So could you add a DVD player? Could you add other speakers if you wanted to?
Gotcha. So with the input, it will allow you to connect HDMI devices as well as VGA. So if your, I think it was DVD player you said, if your DVD player has an HDMI port where you can connect that cable, you would be able to do so. Speakers, I'm not sure if speakers would work because I don't think they have an HDMI or VGA, but if it does, then you could do that as well. All right, sounds like that's all. So we'll move on to the next. All right, speaking of connection, the page that's loading here is providing you with information on how to connect an external device to your SMARTboard. As I mentioned, the IQ is the system that just comes with the board itself. But if you have like a laptop or a computer that you wanted to connect and be able to access from your SMARTboard, you can connect it. What you would need to do is plug it into the ports that can be found in the bottom left corner of your board when you're facing your board. And you'll need a USB cable as well as an HDMI cable. The HDMI cable is what will allow you to see and hear what you're projecting from that external device. And then if you want the touch capability as well, that is where you would use that USB cable. Okay, for anyone that has a Mac, if any of you are using Mac computers, you will need a dongle for that HDMI connection. All right, so those are the connection options that you have with your board. And remember, if you wanted to access any of those connections, you have a button right next to that home button in the bottom right corner. Up next, I'm going to talk to you about the options that you can find on your IQ home screen. There's a little flip out activity here, which is one of the game-based activities that you can build in Lumio. And it's really great for diagrams or showing different parts of a subject. But I'm actually going to demo this live for you all. And I'm going to do that by pressing, again, my home button. My home button always takes me back home. Here on the home screen, and again, I am sharing my screen. So if you want to focus on that shared screen, you can clearly see the different buttons there. On the home screen, starting from the top left corner, you'll see a circular picture that kind of looks like me. That is there because I have signed into my board. And this is something that we're going to walk through with you all later. If you click that, well, for me, it's a picture, but for you, it's going to be like a little emoji or a guy with a head. When you click on that head or that icon, you'll see the option to sign in, and you're able to sign in using your Google or Microsoft credentials. Since I'm already signed in, it's only giving me the option to sign out. Jumping down towards the bottom left corner of my screen, I have the settings icon. This too is something that we're going to take a look at a little later on in the training. This is where you can go to personalize your board and change a few features. Moving over from that settings icon towards the bottom center of the screen, I have my files. That files button is going to allow you to access the files on your board. So if you're using the whiteboard app, which is something I'll show you in just a moment, any of the files that you create in whiteboard will automatically save to your SMARTboard. And this is where you would go to access them. This is also where you can go to access Google Drive files. So once you are signed in to your board, you can go to files and you'll be able to access your Google Drive. Scooting along the bottom, you also have an input button here. So remember, I pointed out the physical button that was on the bottom right of the panel, but you also have an on-screen option that will allow you to choose what input you would like to view. And then the last option that you have there is a screen share. Scooting over to the right corner, I have this circular arrow, and that is for me to sign out of my board. If you're not signed into the board, instead of it saying sign out, it'll say clean up. And signing out is a practice that you'll probably want to pick up and do at the end of each day. And when you sign out of your board, it'll be all clear and ready for the next person. And it will also sign you out of your Google account. Okay, so once you are signed in, at the end of the day, when you choose sign out, it will sign you out of your Google account. Okay, so those are your on-screen options with your SMARTboard. In addition to the buttons that you have here, you can probably see on my screen, I have some files that are showing. There is a recent option on your board, and recent will show you the 8 most recent files or websites that you have gone to. Anything later than that, you'll have to click on that files button at the bottom to access. In addition to the recents, there is a section over here on the right that says favorites. And for those of you that know that you're going to frequently use a certain feature or maybe a certain website, you can easily favorite any of the pages that you use here on IQ by clicking the little star that appears in the top left corner of every file. So for example, if I look at my Intro to SMARTboard MX file, there is a star in the top left corner. And if I click on that, you can now see that that file was added to my favorites. So adding favorites and making your life a little easier is as simple as selecting a star. When I want to remove that favorite, that's pretty simple as well. I would just tap that star again to get rid of it from my favorite section. Was that a question I heard coming in?
No, not right now.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Shelley. Okay, so those are your on-screen features from the home screen of your SMARTboard. And I'm going to go back in to my file, and take us to the next piece. All right, so when I was going over the safety and cleaning features of the board, I mentioned that when you write, right, you only want to use the gray and white pen that comes with the board. You are able to write with the pen, just like you probably write with an Expo marker on a dry erase board. You use your Smart pen to write on your SMARTboard. If you wanted to move or select anything, that's where your finger comes into play. Okay, so you probably have noticed when I'm selecting things on my board screen, I'm able to do that with my finger. When I'm ready to write, I use my pen. And then the last piece that was shown there in the file was for erasing. Okay, so when you have ink on the screen, if you want to get rid of it, it's as simple as taking your palm and just kind of wiping it away. Okay, so write with your pen, move and select with your finger. And when you want to erase, just use your palm or even a fist. I usually use my fist. Alrighty. When I was going over the on-screen options from your SMARTboard, one of those options was screen share. And for screen sharing, we have something called Smart Mirror. This is a great tool for you to use. Oh, cool. I see you using a microfiber towel to erase. Yes, that is an awesome tip, Oscar, and that'll really cut down on the fingerprints, right? But Smart Mirror is a tool that we have, and you are able to use it as an option if maybe you want students to share some work with you on screen. When you have your students connected, if you ever needed to have them disconnect, you'll see an option that says menu in the bottom left corner of that Smart Mirror window. You can also just exit by pressing that handy dandy home button. Okay, so if you need them to stop sharing immediately, remember, home always takes you home. You can easily get out of that Smart Mirror screen sharing by clicking that home button. Okie dokie. So now I'm going to get into some of the interactive features of the whiteboard, which is my favorite part, and it should be your favorite part as well. This is where you're going to get to see some of those cool tools that you can use in the whiteboard that comes with your Smart panel. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and press my handy dandy home button again. And over on the right side of my screen, underneath my favorites, I have an option that says whiteboard. I'm gonna go ahead and open that whiteboard up. Here it is loading, wait for it. There we go. So now that the whiteboard has loaded, and this is the same kind of whiteboard that you have, once it loads, you're able to scroll through at the bottom and select a background you would like. So you could choose this all white background, but there are some more options there that are a little more fun. You have some lined paper. There's also like handwriting paper, so any of the primary teachers. There's grid paper, maybe you're working on something in math or maybe even art. There's also this really cool brick wall. So you can do all kinds of things, and you have all kinds of backgrounds that you can select from here. I'm going to go ahead and stick with my brick wall. And now that I have this background, if I wanted to write, I would use my Smart pen. Okay, so now I can pick up my Smart pen and start writing on the whiteboard here. Right now, this ink is black. If I wanted to change the color of my ink, maybe the thickness of my ink, I can do so by clicking on the little pencil icon that appears on the left side of my screen. It's kind of like in the middle of that toolbar there. I'm gonna click on that pencil. And when you click on it, the panel expands so that you can choose what kind of pen you want to use, what color ink you would like to use, as well as the thickness of your ink. So sticking with my standard pen, I'm gonna go ahead and make my ink a little thicker, and I'm gonna change my ink from black to purple. Now that I've made those selections, when I use my pen to write, instead of it being the black thin ink that I started with, it's now this thicker purple ink. Going back to my pen section, you'll notice that there's more than the standard pen there. There's a highlighter. Okay, so I'm just gonna highlight. Now I got some Laker action going on. And then if I go back, there's also a text pen, which is pretty neat. It will convert your handwriting to text. And then the last option that I want to point out here is actually above those three pens. And it looks like a little finger doing this. When I toggle that switch, it will now allow me to write with my finger. So remember, I started off by saying you write with your gray and white pen, you select with your finger. Well, here's a little caveat. If you turn on that finger inking feature, you can now write with your pen. This would come in handy if maybe you wanted more than 2 students up at the board, or if you have one student writing with a pen in maybe purple ink, and you wanted another student writing on the board with black ink, you can differentiate those colors by having one use the pen and one use their finger. So now my pen is still that highlighter because that's the last selection that I made with my pen, but I'm gonna make my finger red. Boop. Okay. So you do have the ability to write with your finger when you're on the whiteboard if you turn on that finger inking option. And this finger inking option is a setting that we're going to set up with you all towards the end once we have you sign into your board. Okay, so you might not see it right now, but I promise it is there and you'll get to turn it on a little later. Now, remember, when your finger is a pen, you can't now use it to scroll or move, right? Now, when I try to move my page, all I'm doing is making a mess on the screen. So when you turn on that finger inking feature, you just want to remember to toggle it off so that your finger can then move and select objects again. Okay, so now it's off and I can scroll around this board for more space. All right, so I feel like that was—
How many people can go at a time?
What'd you say?
How many people can be on the board at one time?
So there are several touch points on the board. I believe it's up to 10. So if maybe you have 2 students using the pen, you could have 8 more writing with their finger.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Shelly, how are we doing in the chat?
So a couple of the teachers were wondering, which you're going to get to a little bit later, about if they had their own file and they wanted to put on a PDF, how they could annotate on the screen. But I believe that that's a little bit further in.
So they're saying if they have like maybe a PDF on a jump drive, if they would be able to.
Yeah, or even like signing in, connecting their Google account and using one of the PDFs right on the board there.
Yeah, so that's not something that we'll get into detail today, but basically like Shelly was saying, once you sign in and you can access your drive, and you'll get to see that once we do sign in, you can download any PDF that you have saved there, and it will open up into your whiteboard, giving you the ability to annotate directly over it, add pages to it, and all of the features that you have here in the whiteboard.
Sorry, question. What about saving that whiteboard into a PDF?
So once you have signed in and you have your Google Drive integration turned on, your whiteboard files will get saved as Lumio files, which will give you the. That works?
Yeah, no, I did that, but I was trying to do from the Lumio app because I already linked the account, but I wasn't able to save as a PDF because I was doing graphic organizers, so I wanted to try to save those graphic organizers that were made in the whiteboard as a PDF, so I couldn't do it.
Okay, I'm gonna table that for now, and I'll come back to it at the end. Let me just write down Oscar.
Thank you.
Because there's an exporting option that involves some other stuff. But yeah, so for the whiteboard and your inking tools, if you click on that pencil that's on the left side there, you will be able to change the type of pen you're using. Moving on down, there is this little plus sign towards the bottom left corner of the page. And that plus sign will allow you to add more to your whiteboard, which is really cool. So you have graphic organizers here. You have manipulatives that you can add right on the spot. Maybe you're doing a lesson on fractions and you need some fraction tiles. You don't have to worry about pieces being missing because these are all infinitely cloned and it's all digital. So you would be able to use it right here on your board and instantly add it to your file. In the bottom left corner, you'll see I have arrows. So once you have more than one page to your whiteboard file, those are the arrows that you would use to navigate through the file. And in the event that you wanted to allow your students to access what you're presenting from your board on their actual devices, you can share this to their device by clicking the icon near the top left corner. Looks like two students right next to each other. That will allow you to share, your class information with your students. It shows them what website they need to go to, as well as what code they need to enter. And once they follow those directions, they will be able to see what it is you're presenting from your board directly on their device. Okay, so it's pretty cool. They can see it. They can also interact with it. And that's a feature that you'll have available once you are signed into your board. All right, so I think those are the highlights of the whiteboard experience here. You have your sharing option, you have your pen tools, and then whenever you want to add another page, you have your plus sign. Oh, and I mentioned to you all earlier, if you ever needed to erase, you can do so using your fist or your palm. So if I needed to get rid of any of this, I would just do that. There was also the recommendation of using a microfiber cloth, so you can use that as well. What you do in whiteboard automatically saves. Okay, so you can see when I exited that whiteboard screen, it took me back to my home screen here. And I can see the file that I was just working on there under my recents. Remember, the recents only hold your 8 most recent files. So if it was maybe a couple weeks from now and I wanted to access that whiteboard file that I was just working in, I would be able to do so by clicking on the Files button at the bottom. Right. We're still doing well. How am I doing on time? Okay. All righty. So those are some features of your whiteboard. Up next, I'm going to be showing you all some tools that you have in the browser. Is that one? Okay. So on your board, there is a browser app installed. And with that browser app, you are able to access websites as well as your Google Drive. For you all to access these things, we're going to have you all install the security certificate, which will come shortly. But just to give you a little preview of the browser, I have mine here under my favorites, and I have the agenda open from today. In my browser, if I wanted to, I could annotate over my web page. And once you have an annotation on the screen, marking this all up, once you have an annotation on the screen, you'll notice in the top right corner, a little X appears. When you click on that X, it's going to give you the option to save the annotation that you've made, or you can discard it. Okay, so you have two options. If it's something that you might want to build a whole whiteboard file out of, or some notes that you may want to refer to later, you can save it. If it's something that you know you're not going to need, you can just discard it. So again, whenever you write, that green X appears and you just click on it and choose what you would like to do.
Sorry, quick question, Asha. So how you see how you're writing on that? If I'm projecting, because you're in browser right now, if I'm projecting, say, like something from my HDMI cable, and I'm giving a lesson to the students that way, if I write on the board, will it still annotate right on top of it as well?
If you have Smart Ink installed, yeah.
If I have what installed, I'm sorry.
There's something called Smart Ink. And so if you're on the HDMI source and you wanted to annotate over something you were presenting, or maybe a website that you're on, you are able to annotate over it with the Smart Ink.
Is that something I have to pay for? Is that an extension?
No, it's not something you have to pay for. It should already be installed.
Okay, thank you.
So as I shared with you all before, once you are on your board and you sign in using your credentials, that's when you'll be able to access your Google Drive. And so we have time for you all to actually go through that process in today's training. The benefits of signing in addition to being able to access your drive, is that it will remember your favorites. So if we go back to my home screen here, right? These are the apps that I have saved as my favorites, and I'm signed into my board. So these favorites are assigned to me. But once I sign out, those favorites may not be there because the next person that signs in may have decided to favorite something else. All right. So if you have your websites or your teaching tools that you have favorited, once you are signed in, it will allow those favorites to be saved to your profile. When I was going over the home screen earlier, I saw that question. So for your favorites, if you wanted to favorite anything, you would just click the little star that appears in the top left corner of that page or file. So for example, the graffiti board that I was writing on a few moments ago, if I wanted to add that to my favorites so that I could always access my graffiti board quickly and easily, I would just tap that star in the top left. And then once it's there, you'll see it appear underneath your favorites. If I ever wanted to take that favorite away, I would just click the star in the top left again. And now it's gone. Okay, so for those of you that are near your board, if you've not signed in before, we're going to go ahead and walk through that process. Excuse me. I shared with you before, like I have my picture there because I am already signed in. But for those of you that are not signed in, you'll see a little avatar that you can click on. And when you click on that avatar and you sign in using your Google credentials, there's going to be a message that pops up. And that message is being shared on my screen right now. It asks you if you would like to turn on syncing automatically. And what that's going to do is it's going to automatically sync any of the whiteboard files that you create on your board so that it saves in your Lumio account. Okay, you want to hit yes, because even if you're not using Lumio as of yet, this will make it easier for you if you decide to use Lumio in the future. Having your files saved to Lumio gives you an option for sharing those files with your students. So at this point, I'll wait a little bit to give you all time to sign in. And I'm gonna see if there are any other questions coming in.
Andrea just wanted, can you just show her how to, if she, the first time she said no to save to Lumio and she wants to go back in, because I know you're gonna need to go into the settings and then go into the, just show her those steps of getting over there. Or actually, I could probably put it in the chat here.
So there's a part after this where we'll actually go into the settings, so I'll be sure to point it out. Thank you. All right, chat looks nice. All right, so now that we've signed in, you all are going to be able to access the certificate that needs to be installed on your board in order for you to have access to the internet. And for you to locate that certificate, you would go to settings, which is that little gear icon in the bottom left corner of your screen. And once that window opens, you're going to go down to the option that says security.
Can you one more time, Asha, there's just a couple, going back to getting signed in there.
Sure.
Just walking through those steps there.
So for you to sign in on the home screen of your board, in the top left corner, you'll see a little avatar. You'll tap on that. And towards the bottom of the window where mine says sign out, because I'm already signed in, you should see a button that says sign in. And when you click sign in, it will take you to a screen that allows you to sign in with Google or sign in with Microsoft. You would just sign in with Google. And let's see if there's, I don't think there was a screenshot of exactly what it looks like, but
I have it in the chat too.
okay, cool. Thank you. Is it possible to attach? Yes, it is. So in the front of your board, where you see a few ports, you can actually plug in to that first one. I sometimes have my mouse plugged in, but yeah, you would just plug that little USB into that port and you would be able to use that device. And if you have a mouse and keyboard combo, you get 2 for 1 with that little port. All right. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. Shelly has notes in there. Okay. So was there anyone else that was still trying to get signed in? I don't see anything appearing in the chat, so I'm assuming we're all good there. So once you are signed in and you click, yes, I want to sync my files to Lumio, you're gonna go back to your home screen. And from your home screen, you'll click on the settings icon in the bottom left corner. Okay, so that little gear is your settings icon. Excuse me. And from here, you'll scroll down to the option that says security. For me, it's the 3rd option from the bottom. I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but it's somewhere near the bottom. You'll have your security there, and you'll select the option that says install certificates. Okay, so that's settings, security, install certificates. Now, I don't have the certificate that you all have, but you should be able to find your certificate under public files. And for you to access that certificate, what you would do is click on the 3 lines or hamburger menu in the top left corner, and you'll see public files as an option. So again, going from my security here, you have security, click on install certificates, and then in the top left corner, you'll see 3 lines or a hamburger menu. You click on that and select the option that says public files. And thank you, I see Michelle putting those directions in the chat for you all. I think there is a screenshot of that. Okay, so there's a screenshot of what it should look like for you. Once you select public files, you would select the option that says certificate files CK root.
If that's not there, well, I'm not at my board right now, but my IT guy was there earlier and he tried to do it with me and he said that it wasn't there. What needs to be done for it to be there? Our boards just got installed in our building on the 8th.
Okay, so you would need to submit a ticket, and they should be able to handle that for you at the district level.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Right, so we'll hang out here for a little bit. Thank you, Michelle, for your help with this. Thank you, Shelley. Okay, so once you've gone through those first few steps, I have another screenshot here for you of what it should look like on your end. You would add the name root cert and then tap OK. And then you will see a confirmation message once the installation is complete. All right. All right, so now that you all are signed in and you have the security certificate, that's such a tongue twister. Once you have the security certificate installed, we're going to take a look at some other settings that you all have available to you on your board. Is there anyone that is still trying to install their certificate? If so, feel free to drop it in the chat that you need us to wait. All right, woohoo, looks like success then. Either everyone was able to get it, or those of you that are not at your board, you'll try it out later. So what we're going to do next is take a look at those Google Drive settings. So on your board, underneath the settings option, again, going from the home screen, you will just click on the little gear icon in the bottom left corner. And then you'll select the option that says Files Library. And at the very top, you'll see the section that says Whiteboard Storage. My default whiteboard location is Lumio. Okay, and this is what it will say for you if you did choose yes when it asked you about syncing. For those of you that did not, yours probably says board files, but what you would do is just tap on that section like I did, and then you can select Lumio instead and press save. Okay, so again, I'm in settings right now, and I have selected the Files Library category underneath Application Settings. And at the top, you can select by default where you want your whiteboard files to be saved. We are encouraging you to select the Lumio option. Underneath that, for file storage, you have the ability to turn on the Google Drive integration. Okay. And so you can already see mine is toggled on, but if yours happens to be off, you would just tap in the area and that will change it to on. Okay, so under Files Library, we were looking at whiteboard storage, saving to Lumio, and the file storage, syncing with Google Drive. Thanks so much for adding that, Shelley.
Yep.
All right, now right underneath Files library, you'll see Smart Whiteboard. And this is where you're able to turn on that finger inking feature. Okay, so towards the bottom of the settings window here, you'll see the option that says Other. And I have my finger inking turned on. Excuse me. For you, it's probably turned off. So that's where you would tap to turn that feature on. And for those of you that were exploring the whiteboard earlier and you were like, I don't see finger inking, this is why. So you just want to make sure you toggle on that switch now that you're signed into your board. All right, so just to recap what we did here in the settings, underneath the security feature, you do have to install that certificate in order for you to access the internet. And then underneath Files Library, we went to our whiteboard storage, and we have those files being saved by default to Lumio. Underneath File Storage, we've turned on the Google Drive integration. Right underneath your Files Library, you have no smiting. You have Smart Whiteboard settings. Underneath the Other category, you'll see the option for you to enable finger inking. And that's what will allow you to have the ability to turn on that writing with your finger feature in your whiteboard. Okay, so all it does is give you the option to turn it on when you're in whiteboard. Remember, when you go on whiteboard, you can't just pick up your finger and expect to start writing with it. You have to go to the pen section and actually turn on that finger pen. All right. So any questions that have not already been answered? This information can also be found in the Getting Started guide that you all have linked on the agenda. So there's tips there for you, as well as some videos that you can use to review some of the content that was shown today. All right, so what I'm going to do now is get me back to my home screen. Who remembers how can I easily get out of here and get back home? Feel free to drop it in the chat or shout it out. And Shelly, you can't tell me. How do I get back home? Press the home button, yes. Yeah, so press the home button. There's also a little back arrow in the top left corner. But remember, whenever you're in a panic, you need to get back home, you just press that little home button and it will take you out of whatever screen you're in back to the home screen here. All right, so you all have signed in, or maybe you're going to sign in later if you're not near your board. You installed that security certificate and you also changed some settings on your whiteboard. Now, remember, at the end of the day, when you are going home, we do encourage you to sign out. Excuse me, to sign out of your board. That way it will also sign you out of your Google account and it will be available for whoever may decide to come in next. In addition to signing out, now that you have actually signed in, with the files option at the bottom of the board, with the files option at the bottom of the board, now that you've signed in, if you look at the very top of your files, there's an arrow, and you can actually tap on that arrow and it will show you some different options. Excuse me. This arrow is what you would click on depending on what files you wanted to access. So for me, I have Lumio as an option. I have board files as an option. Downloads, which is something that you would get into if maybe you've downloaded something from the internet. And then you also have Google Drive. Okay, so once you have signed in and you go to that file section on your board, you should see those different options there for you. So I can decide where I want to start retrieving files from. If it happens to be my Google Drive, I'll tap Google Drive and it's going to take me to my drive. If it happens to be Lumio, it's going to allow me to view my Lumio files and then decide which one I would like to open. Okay, so files, drop down, and choose what you like to view. And then press home when you're all done. So one thing you should definitely walk away today knowing is that the home button always brings you back to that SMARTboard homepage. Whenever you want to get out of something, just go home. All right, so I'm going to go back to my file here and just make sure that we did all of the steps that we needed to do. Did the settings there. Whiteboard, files library. All right. So the last piece is to actually sign out of your board, and you may or may not decide to do this right now, but again, it is encouraged for you to sign out at the end of the day. It's going to sign you out of your Google account, and it will prepare it for whoever may come in next. Wrap up. All right, so just to reflect on all that we've done today, I know it's probably a lot of information for those of you that might not have done anything on your board yet, but just want you to reflect on some of the things that I showed today and what's something that you're ready to use with your students, or maybe what's something that you learned today. Probably that home button, right? So just to recap with you all, what we did today is we learned about the whiteboard that you have on your Smart panel. And in that whiteboard, you have the ability to choose from a few different pens to write with. Of course, you have your physical Smart pen that you could use there, right? And this is the only kind of pen that you should be writing on your board with. However, in your whiteboard, if you've turned on that finger inking feature, you also have the ability to write with your finger. With whiteboard, you can select from a variety of backgrounds to choose from. You can also add different pages. And I'm sorry, my computer is about to die. Hold on, let me just plug it in. Sorry about that. All right, so you can choose from the different backgrounds. You can add graphic organizers or manipulatives. And remember, you can also get your students connected to that. Okay, so if you wanted them to view any whiteboard that you've built from their device and maybe interact with it, you can do that directly from the screen. In addition to exploring whiteboard, we also took a look at the browser that you have here. And with that browser, again, if you annotate over any page that you're presenting, it will allow you to either save those annotations or discard them. Okay, so when I write, there's the X in the top right corner, and I just click on that X to choose what I want to do with this circle that I just drew over the agenda. And then last but not least, you all were able to sign into your board, customize some of those settings, and install your security certificate. So.
Sorry,
Yes.
Miss Oscar again. I don't know if you went through question that I had about how to save, for example, a graphic organizer that I did using one of the whiteboards, how to save a PDF. See, I'm using Rumi already, so but I don't know how to save as a PDF.
Gotcha. So for those of you that are interested in that exporting feature, all right, so one way that you can get your files off of your board is if you have a jump drive. And so I happen to have one here. I'm just gonna plug it into that USB in the front, and it will allow me to export files onto that drive. For me to export them, I would go to my files library. Okay, so again, clicking that files icon on the bottom of the screen there, and gonna go to my files, and I'll just pick this one. So let's say this is the file that I want to use. If I hold down on that file, you'll see that everything kind of darkens out. But at the top, there's an option that says export to USB. Okay, so I would be able to export that file or files, if I selected more than one, to my USB drive. And then with that, you could share it with your students. And the other option, which I think you said you did already, Oscar, was in Lumio, you can give them that share link.
That's why I want, because I know you can share with students that they receive a link. But since I have Lumio, so I don't know if you can export to Lumio instead of having the thumb drive.
Oh, you want to export this directly to Lumio as a PDF?
Yes. Yeah.
Can
I do that?
That's not currently an option, no.
Just the thumb drive for now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But if you had that on your thumb drive and then opened up Lumio, you can't like directly export it from your board. But if you were in Lumio, you could take that picture or PDF and put it into a Lumio presentation. Is that what you mean, Oscar?
Yeah, just because we create something, as I say, I want to organize it. So I want to share the PDF created with students, but the only way that I found was just to share the link where they can access. But I just want to share the PDF or image with students. You know how to export to Lumio to my file, so we as a PDF.
But Oscar, if you can get it as a PDF on the jump drive, then that's enough. My issue is I can only get the SLS files, which require that platform. So you can export to PDF on the thumb drive, then I'm happy.
Okay. I haven't tried that with the thumb drive, but I'm gonna try. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Dr. Jones had her hand up. I'm not sure if I answered it or if there was something else. Dr. Jones.
I've got the same issue as Oscar. I need PDFs because I've got high school students, so I need them to be able to not interact after we've interacted with the thing. I need to have a record that I can share with people who were absent, post it on Canvas. So if it's only working with Google Classroom and Schoolology, then maybe that's something for down the road. But that's
Dr. Jones, this is Michelle from T3. Can you send me an email? Because we do have an application that allows you to create assignments using PDFs, and that's Cami. So send me an email and I'll put my email in the chat and we could talk more after or talk at another time.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I use Cami also embedded in Canvas, but since we were using the SMARTboard For example, I love the graphic organizing, all the different organizers, and so doing a lot of activities doing that, but I was wondering how to export. But I don't know if you guys have planning to integrate that feature down the road, because it would be helpful for the teachers.
So Oscar, just send me an email and we'll talk about what the opportunities or possibilities are. We don't want to take up the session time.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, so with that being said, maybe you were thinking, maybe not, what tools that you look forward to using with your students. What do you feel like you've learned today? If there is anything, feel free to share it in the chat. Otherwise, we just have the survey here, and we're open for additional questions. You all do have a website built specifically for your district. So any resources that you may need can be found there. And yeah, so thank you all for joining today. Shelley and I are here for any questions that you may have.